Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John, and I have a little secret that I'm gonna have to come clean on right away. I'm getting old. I'm gonna be 30 later this year, and that is very unnerving, a daunting task to even take on thinking about that. And for the longest time, I thought that me getting older was one of the primary reasons as to maybe why I felt out of touch with the current state of pop-punk music. It's a genre that I've had a lot of love for. In fact, in many ways, I have been pigeonholed as a critic that loves only pop punk, even though that's the furthest thing from the truth. And in fact, I have a lot of problems and struggles with the genre, especially in its current day. Brief history lesson with me and pop punk over the past few decades. I grew up listening to the classic era stuff, like when The Offspring and Dookie by Green Day broke through into the mainstream. I was late to that, but I really felt a connection to that material. And then of course I jumped on with some of the other big bands like Blink-182, because how could you not? Not only is their music super fun, at times touching and emotional, but also just a staple of the industry when it comes to pop punk, a name that you obviously think of. But over time, I adapted into a lot of the smaller bands too, ones that I felt were very deserving of a bigger following. And during the late 90s, throughout all of the 2000s, and maybe throughout the mid-2010s as well, I felt that there was an eclectic mix where bands could be angsty, they could be more on the prophetic side of things, they got into politics, and it could still be fun and hammering home this pop-punk mentality that bordered on emo, occasionally post-hardcore, because typically some of the best pop-punk bands aren't just purebreds. Maybe this is a hot take to you, but pop-punk peaked in 2015. That was a year that was massive for bands like The Story So Far, Neck Deep put out their best album, Life's Not Out to Get You, and young bands like Boston Manor were breaking out on the precipice of putting out an album like Be Nothing. But here's the thing, in the subsequent years, the genre has struggled. It's gone downhill big time. And before we get into any of the new acts and feel like old man screaming at the clouds in the sky, we're gonna talk about that specific moment in time and what went wrong. A lot of the biggest players in that scene, I'm talking bands that play festivals like Warped Tour and Slam Dunk, they obviously kind of had the carpet pulled out from under them because Warped Tour came to an end. Its final cross-country run was 2018, and then in the subsequent years, we started seeing a discrepancy between the amount of pop-punk material that was coming through and actually stood the test of time and felt like it had heart behind it, and then just clones that were regurgitating the past but didn't necessarily have a home beyond maybe just a temporary spot in a playlist. What was the major contributing factor that led to an ignition switch being flipped within the pop-punk community that saw bands thriving and having their moment in the sun because they weren't just doing the same old, they weren't just copy and pasting Blink-182's riffs and their whole song structure over and over again? I think that the genre was thriving at that time because so many small bands were having their natural moment to break out, to be able to tour, develop a following, and then put out fantastic albums that obviously fans are connecting with. There's been great albums in pop punk since then, and it's not just like overnight 2016, no more good pop punk, that's it forever. That didn't happen. It's just that I slowly saw it, not only in the numbers and the way that people were reacting to and streaming and purchasing these songs and albums from pop punk artists. I saw a lot of people fall away from the genre, and I'm not just talking about the fans, I'm talking about the bands that were making the music in the first place. Indifference and inability to keep moving forward was definitely something that worked against pop punk, as a lot of people, including yes the fans too, got tired of the whole defend pop punk movement that bands like Man Overboard perpetuated. And I feel that that was always a sinking ship, not the hill that the genre wants to die on. So, with nothing else to do other than move on from pop punk, bands like Boston Manor and so many others just branched out into other forms of alternative music, whether that be hard rock, getting heavier, or moving into more of a pop lane. It's definitely been mixed results, but some of the bands have absolutely smashed it stepping away from pop punk. If you look back to who was killing it in 2015, bands that were seemingly on top of the world, like State Champs, Neck Deep, The Story So Far, they were the leaders of the new movement, of the new era. Even a band like Knuckle Puck could be included there. But outside of The Story So Far, possibly putting out their best album, which wasn't exactly pop punk in 2018, I feel that most of those bands have struggled to consistently put out A-tier material that matched their previous heights. I'm sorry, but falling back on the exact same boring cliches, the love songs, the ones that feel like they're trying to have angst but are so dime a dozen and overproduced that you can't even tell if they have a soul, that's not going to keep a genre intact. So look at it like the Viner invasion to YouTube, because I feel that pop punk got infiltrated by the TikTok kids, by the ones that are from Gen Z, of course, not to put down an entire generation or an entire mentality or way of thinking or doing things. But I feel that so much of the current wave of pop punk is just repeating the nostalgia. Obviously, I've talked at length about like Travis Barker of Blink-182 basically drumming on, producing like everything that's associated with pop punk now. It's very messy, mixed results. And I feel that the heart, the passion, the soul, it's not exactly there. And I don't think it's really my place to know or question everybody's intentions that's putting out the music that they do. But it's so hard for me to feel anything but kind of a look of disgust when I listen to somebody like Jaden Hossler or obviously Willow Smith put out a pop punk project that just feels like there's a disconnect. Not to just harp on the lyrics, let's go beyond that. Let's talk about the production, the way that everybody is emulating this exact same sound that does have the pop punky guitars and the kind of light hook that feels like it's trying to be way more pop than it is punk. The best thing about the world of pop punk is when both of those things can collide in the perfect explosion. I'm talking about like My Chemical Romance on 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, taking on so many different elements and then just smashing you in the face. There's ingenuity, there's something fresh, and now it's just like, hey, I've got this kind of pop punk nostalgia idea. Here's an old school producer that's been around for a while, or else a feature from a big band back in the heyday that are still known by everybody, and let's slap a trap beat on there. That's where the disconnect really kicks in, and like I said at the start of this video, for the longest time I was thinking it's just me getting older, that's natural, but I look back to different decades in time as pop punk has evolved and changed, and I often felt myself growing and changing with that, even during the 2010s when I was in my early to mid 20s and I was feeling so much of what was coming out. Not that I related to everything out there, but I just felt it was worthy still of being heard and being praised. Small pop punk bands are just not getting the opportunities that they used to, whether that be festivals to play at like Warped Tour, or just the fact that dwindling views and interest in these small acts and these labels, from Hopeless Records to Triple Crown, they just don't seem to get the attention or even the music video views that they used to. Look to a bigger band like Neck Deep, who put out an album in 2020. The views on those music videos compared to their heyday of 2015, 2017, it's just not exactly adding up. And I feel like a lot of people have shifted their focus and they look to like a big star like MGK, or even some of these breakthrough hits like Mood by 24K Golden and Ian Dior that have broken through, and they kind of have a pop punk vibe to them. I like some of that stuff, but again, I think the young bands that are just doing their thing, busting their asses, obviously deserve that love too. So please, take to the comments, let us know, including me, let me know what pop punk band should we be listening to and giving our time to if the genre is going to move forward, doing something at least a little bit new or creative. There's some really solid newer acts, including Driveways, like Pacific, even Kenny Hoopla, who I've mentioned a few times before, that I think are definitely deserving of attention. I'm really excited to see how they can grow and evolve from their roots that's taking on older styles of pop punk, but also kind of doing their own thing. I want that heart grenade emotion to be exploding everywhere. I want to be able to feel and connect to these songs because, again, That's the missing string, and it's such a key string that you can't really have the entire song without it. Wait, I forgot to mention this while I was recording. I also think it's kind of whack with all of these bands that are just relying so hard on their, like, successes in the past. I mean, the whole Pop Punk's Not Dead tour definitely feels more like a funeral than it does a celebration, but I just feel like it's equally cringe to like some of the new stuff that's breaking through, the old ones that just can't let go of the past and just keep doing anniversary tours constantly. It's gonna take more than just stoking the dying coals to keep an entire fire for a whole genre blazing. But these are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think. What do you think about the current state of pop punk? Are there bands that you would like to recommend? Let us know down below. Please hit that like button while you're here. A like truly does go a long way, and subscribe with notifications on if you happen to be new to the channel. Also, if you want to see me talk more about pop punk and guitar music, then you can click this video right here or tap here for another recent discussion. All of my socials can be found in the description down below, and I'll be back soon with more on Beyond ARTV.